I saw you on the platform.
I know you didn't think I'd come.
I'm not sure why you're here.
We have unfinished business.
Catherine Van Allen had been raised among glittering chandeliers and silk gowns. But she stepped off the train at Red Rock Station, wearing a simple traveling dress that already felt far too fine for the dusty wind-scoured platform. She clutched her leather valise and scanned the scattering of weathered cowboys and work-worn horses, searching for the man whose poetic, heartfelt letters had promised a life of wide-open freedom and honest love, far from Philadelphia's suffocating ballrooms. When she finally spotted the figure leaning against a splintered fence post, his hat pulled low and his boots caked in dried mud, her heart plummeted because he bore no resemblance to the dashing gentleman her imagination had painted from his elegant, handwritten words. He was tall and undeniably handsome in a rugged, unpolished way, but his chapped hands, the two-day shadow on his jaw, and the faint scent of cattle that clung to his shirt made her wonder if she had made a catastrophic mistake. She had fled a gilded cage only to face a man who looked more at home in a dusty corral than in any parlor, and the disappointment that flickered in her chest was so sharp that she nearly turned back toward the train before it fully chuffed away. But what awaited her, beyond that first jarring impression, was a truth so deep and transformative that she would one day thank heaven she hadn't run back to the suffocating luxury she had escaped. Samuel McCrae removed his hat, revealing surprisingly gentle hazel eyes, and he spoke her name with a quiet reverence that momentarily stilled the frantic beating of her heart on that otherwise ordinary afternoon. He did not offer a gloved hand or a polished compliment, but instead asked if she was hungry after the long journey, a simple question that struck her as more genuine than 1,000 flowery declarations from her previous suitors. During the bumpy wagon ride to his modest ranch, he confessed awkwardly that a schoolteacher friend had helped him compose his beautiful letters, because his own handwriting was clumsy and his grammar far from perfect. The revelation, rather than enraging her, pierced something tender inside Catherine, because she suddenly understood that this rough man had cared enough about her soul to seek out the finest words he could possibly give. His cabin was small and unadorned, yet she noticed immediately that he had scrubbed every surface, placed fresh wildflowers in a chipped vase, and hung a new curtain on the window he had built especially for her arrival. That evening, Samuel slept in the barn so she could have the bed, and as Catherine listened to the coyotes sing beneath a vast canopy of stars, she felt something she hadn't felt in years, the unfamiliar stirring of genuine safety. Over the following days, she discovered that he could barely read, but could mend a broken fence with astonishing skill, that he spoke little but listened with his whole being, and that he treated every animal on his land with an almost sacred tenderness. One night a young orphaned colt was born weak and struggling, and Catherine watched Samuel spend hours on his knees in the straw, massaging the creature's fragile legs and murmuring encouragement, until it finally stood on wobbly limbs. In that moment, watching the lantern light play across his exhausted, dirt-streaked face, she realized that a man's worth has nothing to do with polished speech and everything to do with the quiet faithfulness he pours into the forgotten corners of life. She began to see beauty in his chapped hands, the same hands that had built her window, repaired the leaking roof before she arrived, and gently lifted the ailing colt without a single thought for his own comfort. One evening, Samuel shyly handed her a letter he had written entirely on his own, the spelling awkward, and the ink smudged, but the words so raw and honest that she wept, understanding that he had poured his untutored heart onto that precious paper. Catherine wrote back to her horrified Philadelphia family, declaring that she had found more genuine gentility in a dusty cabin with a near-illiterate rancher than in all the grand mansions she had ever graced with her unhappy presence. The local townsfolk initially gossiped about the cultured heiress slumming in a dirt-floor ranch, but her radiant contentment and Samuel's unwavering dignity soon transformed their scorn into something close to awe and admiration. When the first harsh winter descended and supplies ran dangerously low, Samuel hiked 15 miles through a blizzard to fetch medicine for a feverish Catherine, returning half-frozen but triumphant with the precious bottle clutched against his chest. As she slowly recovered beneath a pile of his warmest quilts, she took his weathered hand and confessed that she had initially come west, seeking escape but had stumbled instead upon the truest home her heart had ever known. Samuel, his voice cracking with emotion he could barely contain, admitted that he had prayed every night for a wife who might one day look past his rough exterior and see a man who simply wished to love her completely and without reservation. They were married by a circuit preacher on a spring morning when the wildflowers Samuel had planted near the cabin burst into a riot of color. As if the very land was celebrating the improbable union of two vastly different souls, Catherine transformed the modest ranch house not by imposing her refined tastes, but by blending her gentle elegance with his rugged honesty, creating a space that felt like a warm embrace to every weary visitor who crossed their threshold. She taught Samuel to read fluently by the fireside, her patience as endless as the prairie sky, and he taught her to ride a horse, bareback, to find constellations, and to laugh without worrying about propriety or judgment. Their love became a quiet legend in the territory, a living proof that true compatibility is forged not in shared social stations but in mutual sacrifice, unwavering respect, and the daily choice to see the best in one another's hearts. Years later, when an old Philadelphia acquaintance visited and gasped at Catherine's calloused hands and sun-kissed cheeks, she simply smiled and replied that her hands had built more lasting happiness than all the idle, pampered fingers in her past ever could. Samuel and Catherine raised 3 children who inherited both her love of books and his love of the land, and their ranch became a place where highborn and lowborn alike sat at the same table and broke bread with unfeigned joy. When age finally soft Samuel's broad shoulders, Catherine still saw the same handsome, anxious cowboy who had stood dusty and uncertain at the train station, and she loved every weathered line that their decades of devotion had etched upon his face. The story of the heiress who fled high society for a cowboy who was nothing like she expected still echoes across the prairie, reminding every listener that the best treasures are often wrapped in the roughest, most unassuming packages. If this journey of overturned expectations and discovered worth has stirred your spirit, then you understand exactly why we dedicate ourselves to unearthing these powerful narratives of quiet courage and profound redemption from the Old West. Please tap like, subscribe to Stories Hub Official with the bell, and share in the comments a time when reality proved far richer than your expectations, because your voice and your heart are deeply valued members of our worldwide storytelling family.